Ah. Jesus talked about the Beatitudes. Katrina sang about the gotta be's. There was a lot of gotta be's, okay? This morning we'll be talking about spiritual understanding and will. And as we go into that and grow into that, as one person said, they need to come to two services together, some of what I was talking about this morning. But we're not going to hold two more services, so don't worry, you don't have to do that. There was a fellow by the name of Neville Goddard. He was a religious science leader and mystic who lived in the 30s. Well, he lived from around 1905 to 1972, but he was well known during the 40s and 50s, in particular the early 60s. He lived in Los Angeles. He was from Barbados, West Indies, and he is a mystic. About the year 2000, I got hold of some of his books and I started reading it, and I think I may have understood 50% of it, if I was lucky. I just wasn't ready for it totally. And then as I've continued to study, a while back I picked up his books and started reading them again. And now I understand about 80% of it, okay? And I'm getting there, though. One day I'm going to pick it up and understand 100%. But I want to keep some of the things that he brought into mind kind of simple this morning, and hopefully allow us to understand how we put all this together to become the demonstration, the manifestation of God. Because that's what we are. He said on a radio show, Neville, God became as we are so we can be as he, she, it is. It's a lot to say in a few words. He went on to say that God became one in man, Jesus, and he was a personification of the Christ. And this is what Jesus demonstrated. He said, and it's true for me too, that without the teachings of Jesus, I would not know that Spirit resides within me. That God is what I am manifesting into the world. And that is why he called, and we call, Jesus a way shower, or a light, or a guide. That what he taught was what's really, very, really very important for each of us. And from what he has written, and many others before him, the Fillmores, writers of the Christian Scripture, even today I can say writers of other scriptures, faith scriptures, I have come to believe that our purpose is to be the manifestations of the higher self, which we call the I am, which is truly the Christ consciousness. That we each have that possibility within us to be raised to the Jesus Christ consciousness. And we know that that means that we have the ability to manifest God as Jesus did. That's a powerful thought and a powerful responsibility. This month we're talking about the 12 powers as amplified by Charles Fillmore, as demonstrated by Jesus, and explained in a practical yet progressive manner in the book Divine Audacity by Reverend Linda Martella Whitsett. That's a mouthful. But anyway, she is in San Antonio, and she is a writer and also a minister there. And she has written this book, Divine Audacity. I say it is progressive because for us to be audacious enough to believe we are divine spiritual beings is a form of progressive thinking, and yet audacious at the same time in the world we live in. It is practical because to live life with a purpose that transcends the human condition is what we're here for. That's a practical application, if you would, of what Jesus taught and what the Fillmores taught. How to demonstrate life more abundantly is dependent upon our consciousness. Our consciousness. It's dependent upon how we think and what we think and what we're willing to become. You might ask, what is consciousness? And we've certainly tried to explain that many times. Science can't explain it very well, so I don't know that I can. But here's an idea behind it, that your human consciousness, the human consciousness, is your present level of awareness. It's your awareness and it is interpreted as the sum total of all you believe, think, feel, and accept as true. The neat thing is that you and I think this is a form of grace, are able to change and raise our consciousness as we so desire. And the way we do this, that we teach in Unity, is the law of mind action, that we use the law of mind action to change our thought patterns. We also call it the law of manifestation, that we manifest into being that which we focus on. And Neville called it, and I love this, the law of assumption. Now, the reason I like that is because all of us have the power to assume, right? I mean, you can assume a lot of things about a lot of people. You can assume a lot of things about yourself. And we all kind of understand what that means. I make assumptions, and I buy into those assumptions. And so those assumptions now become real in my life. They become part of my screen of life, part of my world. So the question I have is, how would you like to have a better life? Better health, more love in your life, less pain and more abundance. Most of us, I think, would say, yes, I want the better life, not the lesser life. And if we think about that and step into that, what happens is we have to awaken our consciousness to the better, so that we can use the law of assumption to bring about that better. And the law of assumption, by Neville, by Holmes, by the Fillmores, all were saying the same thing in a little different words, that we have to incorporate and learn to manage and direct 12 gifts, 12 spiritual powers that we each have, that we each are born with, and they're innate within us. We cannot not have them. And Vicki talked about 2 of them last week. She talked about faith. Everybody has faith. Now, the definition of it might be a little different. She said that faith is a belief that you cannot see. What you cannot see can be brought into visibility. Simple definition of faith. What you cannot see can be brought into visibility. It is the perceiving power of the mind linked to the power to shape substance or energy, is what Charles Fillmore said. And she talked about imagination and tied these together and said imagination is the creative ability to shape thoughts into ideas which can be manifested into our lives. It's not enough just to have a thought or to have an idea and daydream about it. That what we can do is bring it into being, bring it into existence so that we have that better life, that better opportunity, more abundance. And so what I want to do is bring in now the 2 powers that we're talking about, power of spiritual understanding and the power of will, and how they're used to create better health, how they are used to create better relationships, how they are used to create better abundance and a better life itself. Now, she talked about the gotchas and the gottas. I'm talking about the betters, okay? And so we can do better. Spiritual understanding. We talked about faith, imagination. Now let's talk about spiritual understanding, because spiritual understanding is such an important foundation to how and what we imagine, to what we have faith in. Spiritual understanding is a level of righteousness. Now, a lot of us kind of repel from that word because we think about self-righteousness. Jesus talked about that. Many of us will remember that when he was talking about the scribes and the Pharisees, he said, except your righteousness shall exceed the righteousness of the scribes and Pharisees, you shall in no way enter into the kingdom of heaven. And where did Jesus say the kingdom of heaven was? Within us. He said it over and over again. The kingdom of heaven is within. Not out there somewhere. Not somewhere you're going to. It's within. It's who we are, and we can live in the kingdom of heaven. That's what Jesus did, as an example. And he had his challenges. He had his problems. And yet he was always, always living in the kingdom of heaven. The scribes and the Pharisees, in this scripture, metaphysically, means those who are influenced and governed by the outer appearance. When you and I are governed by or influenced by outer appearances and let them control our lives, we are like the Pharisees and the scribes. We are the Pharisees and the scribes. And it says that the rules and the customs of society and the vain desire to be thought well by others by living up to the expectation of others is the kind of self-righteousness that Jesus was talking about. It's being not only in the world, but being a part of the world. It's being as the world. And that means that we got to keep up with the Joneses. I know that was said in the 70s and the 60s, but it hadn't gone away, has it? We still want to keep up with the Smiths and the Joneses. And we still want to live life in such a way that we think we're better than other people. Ooh. Now, I know you don't believe that. I hope. But I think in unity, one of the challenges we might have is that we are truth students and we know the truth. And if we know the truth, the others don't know it. And that's not even close to true. See? I don't know what I just said, but it was a mouthful. So we're not talking about self-righteousness. We're talking about true righteousness. That's what consciousness is. And here's what Neville said true righteousness is. It is the consciousness of already being what you want to be. Wow, powerful stuff. It is the consciousness of already being what you want to be. And we use this law of assumption, as he called it, to do that. Unless we use the power of spiritual understanding of righteousness to discern what is in our highest and best interest. Unless we are willing to learn by being in the truth, seeking the truth, then we are going to learn by our mistakes. And it's more painful and takes more time. So we have a choice. And through spiritual understanding and desire, we find out what is in our highest good as we seek that. As we seek that truth. And it's different for each and every one of us. And sometimes it means we go through pain. Sometimes it means I don't think it means we suffer, but we go through pain. Sometimes it means that we make mistakes, but we become aware and we're awakened to those mistakes. And we grow because of it. And as we grow, we become, in a way, through the power of faith, find a better way of living life more abundantly. Spiritual understanding, righteousness, is understanding what it is that I want and seeking that and putting that first. Jesus also said, "Blessed are the righteous, for they are free." Now it says will be in the scripture. I think they wrote that wrong. Because the are is present tense. The will be is always in the future. The has been is always in the past unless we bring it with us. But the are is always right here and right now. That's what the I am is. It is the are, if you would, A-R-E, in our lives. And as we step into that, we then have to look at how does the power of will work with that power of spiritual understanding so that we actually grow. So that we become our purpose. We become what we are, which is manifestations of God. Well, there are two kinds of will I want to chat about for a second. One is free will. Now, I can talk about this for a half an hour, 45 minutes, 2 or 3 hours, because I used to debate it in college all the time as a Baptist student. Free will is a big thing in the Baptist church. That we have free will to do whatever we want to do. And that is the truth. You and I do. Free will, if I use spiritual understanding with it, brings me into alignment with what is my highest good. And when I step into that searching for the truth and give up my will, the little my, the me, and step into the I am will, spiritual will, I then am able to determine and let go of whatever is holding me back to determine that and awakening to my good. That makes sense? Good. I don't have to say it twice. Now there's another word that has to do with will. You look at a 2-year-old, you see it in a great, great way. It's called willpower. Right? And you know, some of us carry that 2-year-old around with us for a lot of years. And some of us have been taught that we use willpower to get things done. And that's true in the world. Willpower is the ability to bring into being through force that which we desire. We force it. We make it happen. We step out of the process of the law of assumption, the law of mind action, and we actually look around and we grab whatever we can grab to make our dream, which may not be based on spiritual understanding, come true. And so it's a forced process, if you would. Arun Gandhi would have said that was passive violence in action. And so one of the things to remember is that we don't want to use willpower. We want to use free will, and we want to release it and surrender it. Because Jesus said, I can of my own will do nothing, because I seek not my own will, but the will of the Father who sent me. What a great, great demonstration and understanding of who we are. And in the Garden of Gethsemane, he said, not my will, but thy will be done. His will was probably not to be crucified. I'm not sure it was God's will to be crucified. But whatever had to happen in that moment, he had to step into, and that's what took place. And so we let go of our will and we step into the will, if you would, of the I am within us. Not the God out there, not Jesus, not somebody else, not a guru, and there's nothing wrong with gurus. Jesus was a guru also. But what is within us? What's calling us? What's speaking to us? What is ours to do? How do I fulfill my purpose in life? And when I let go of my willpower and release my free will and surrender it to the higher power within me, I then am able to step into that which I am assuming. I am willing and expecting myself to step into a higher consciousness. And I come back to the active verb. It's I am. I am doesn't mean I'm going to be. I am does not mean I used to be. I am doesn't mean I think I'm going to be. I am doesn't mean I'm going to think about it. When we use I am as a principle, as God within us, I am, period. But sometimes it doesn't work that easily because there's other stuff in the way. And as I use the law of assumption, I can get that stuff out of the way because I can be righteous, seeking righteousness. I can be and have spiritual understanding, and I can release my will to the higher self within me. When I understood that, when I came into unity and started to understand that, I was for the first time able to surrender to what I call God. I was not able or willing to surrender to God because I thought God was out there some way and God would use me in a way I wasn't going to be comfortable. You know? He's going to make me do things that I didn't want to do. And I was told I had to be crucified over and over again in this life to have that God in my life. Why would I surrender to that? But when I understood that the higher self is what I'm surrendering to, I was able to literally surrender over and over again many times. And I still have to work on that because willpower, free will, is an important part of being human. And what I want to do is live from a spiritual basis, from an understanding of spiritual. Now, looking at the law of assumption, I want to give you two stories. One is about James Dillard Freeman. James Dillard Freeman was the Poet Laureate of Unity. He died, I think, about 9 years ago. And one of the thrills I had is that I had read James Dillard Freeman. The Prayer of Protection is his writing. Some of his stuff's on the moon. Prayers that he wrote was on the moon, taken there by astronauts early on. So he was well known. And I went to Unity Village, and I didn't know anybody. It was my first time there. And I went into the lunchroom, and I sat down with this guy who looked old, haggard, long beard. And I said, "I'm Richard. Who are you?" And he said, "I'm James Dillard Freeman." And I said, "You're kidding me." "You look younger than in your pictures." He said, "They used a picture when I was really young." And he laughed. Just came out of me. I didn't know what else to say. I was so stunned. And so we talked, and I got to know him a little bit. I certainly didn't know him well, but I got to know him a little bit. And I really got to know him through his writings and through his consciousness that was right there in the moment. And one of the things that he writes about is using the law of assumption to purchase the house that he wanted. Now, he lived in Unity Village. He worked at Unity Village. And that meant that he made a little less than the average person doing the same job. That's a shame, but that was the truth. And he used to drive by this farm back and forth from Unity Village to the home he had. And he would look at that farm, and he would say, "You know, I really want to buy that farm. That's a great farm. I want to buy that farm, but I can't afford it." Those are the worst words you can use. I can't afford it. We can choose not to afford something. That's different than saying I can't afford it. And so as he rode by, he started to grow on him. So what he started doing is stopping in front of the house. And he'd look at the house, and he'd close his eyes, and he would see himself walking in. And then he'd say, "How does that feel?" "Oh, that feels really good." And then he would look at the mailbox, and he saw his name on the mailbox. And he started looking at that, started visualizing that. He did that for about a year. And lo and behold, the farm came on the market. And he drove by, and he looked at it. He visioned himself walking in. He envisioned his name on the mailbox. He saw himself working in the yard. And it's a beautiful yard, by the way. And he drove away. And he said, "I can't afford it." That's what he'd say to himself, "I can't afford it." So he's over at Unity Village, and he's telling this friend of his in the prayer room about what it is that he wanted, but that he could not afford it. And the guy said, "I beg your pardon? I can't afford it." He says, "What do you mean you can't afford it? I can't believe you're saying that after what you've written." He said, "Well, I'm trying to be practical." "You ever been practical?" "Sure." And the fellow said, "Well, what's the problem?" He said, "Well, they got 80 acres attached to it, and that's worth a lot of money. And that's why I don't feel like I can afford it." And the fellow said, "Well, have you ever thought about going back to him and asking him if they'll just sell you 3 or 4 acres with the land, with the house?" He said, "No, I've never thought of that." "Why don't you go back and ask him?" So he did. And the fellow said, "I'd be glad to do that. It's a land I really want to sell anyway. And it's not going to make much difference with 4 or 5 acres in the house without it, really. So I'll sell it to you if you'd like to have it." And James Dillard Freeman said, "Well, how much will it cost me?" And I don't know what the number is today, but it was what James Dillard Freeman knew he could afford. And he bought that house. Now, Vicki and I used to visit the house, and we had 3 of our roommates who lived there when we were in ministerial school and seminary. And it is a lovely little house. It's not what I envisioned when I read the story. I thought I was going to look at a mansion. It was a normal farmhouse, but it was beautiful grounds. And you could literally feel the spirit in that house when you walked in, because he had lived there and his wife Virginia had lived there. And she had decided to rent it out to students, and she moved and downsized herself. And what happened in that story was, you see, remember, he saw himself walking in the house. He felt what it would feel like doing that. He saw his name on the mailbox. But he had to get some of his stuff out of the way. So he got some help from outside. When we affirm something, the resources will come to us that gives us the ability to have it. The resource for him was his friend, not money. second story is somewhat similar, but a little different. This is one that Neville talks about, and it was about a young man who was in college and got a phone call from his mother and from his father saying, his father saying, I just got booted out of my business. He was a partner. He was a junior partner. And therefore, I don't have any income. I can't keep you in college. You're going to have to come home. Guy called up Neville, who had been hearing speak, and said, what do I do? I want to assume that I'm going to come back to school. And Neville said, well, the first thing you got to do is have spiritual understanding. So I want you to pray about what is best for you. What is it you desire? And as he went back home and stayed for a while, what came to him, his desire was to build a business with his dad. So he and his dad went into business, same kind of business, down the street from the big business, had a big building, was very successful. And over a 10-year period, they became very successful. And at the same time, the other business started to wane because the service level, the friendliness that his father really was the glue to, was no longer there. And for a couple years before that, before it became on the market, it did come on the market, this young man would drive by and do the same thing that James Dillard Freeman did. That's what Neville told him to do. I want you to drive by and I want you to see your name on the building. Take the other names off in your head. Put your name on the building. He did that. He did it for 2 years when it wasn't even on the market. And he said, I want you to feel like what it would be to be in there. Anyway, he had been in there as a kid, so he knew what it would feel like, and he could visualize it. He could actually visualize his feelings and the experience of being there. And he continued to do that for 2 years. And then that building went on the market. But he and his dad sat down and looked at their financial situation. Although the business had been very successful, they could not afford that building. It wasn't in the books. No way it could work. Well, he looked at his dad and said, what should I do? His dad said, well, I don't want you to get upset. I don't want you to get down, so just stop visualizing. His mother said, you are really going to be disappointed if you keep that up. But for some reason, within him, for the next 9 months, he rode by every day and couldn't stop doing it. And he would visualize that. And the building was still on the market. And then one day, a fellow walks into their door of their other business and said, I really have missed doing business with you guys. I stayed with the other business for loyalty, but now they're out of business, I want to do business with you. More than that, I want to become a partner in your business because I think you should be in that building down the street. And I'm going to buy that building for you and for this business as a partner. And they bought the building and they moved into that building. And after 10 more years, they had 10 more buildings like that throughout the United States. He didn't think it was going to happen. Or, I'm sorry, his parents didn't think it was going to happen. He believed it was going to happen. You see, the law of assumption, what I assume, what I totally hold in my heart, what I believe in, becomes important. And so, in finishing this message, what I want to do this morning is take just a couple of minutes, and I want to use the law of assumption. Does anybody have a healing request for anybody or yourself this morning? Anybody? Marilyn? Pardon? Your legs, okay. Yes? Your daughter? All legs? No. No? Okay. I understand. Oh, yes, I got you. I've been there. Madeline? Oh, thank you. Did she? Oh, we didn't know about that. Thank you for sharing that. You got it? She had the same one. Anybody else? Roy, 1 second. I'm sorry, I'll come back to you. Oral surgery, recuperate. That's why you're so quiet this morning. Yes. Ed Green. Okay, thank you. Ed Green. Elizabeth? Healing this time. But I'll come back and pray with you personally on that, okay? Thank you. Your mother? Okay, thank you. All right. Georgia.
My brother in Arizona that is
Okay. Rita? Okay? Energy. 1 second. Go on. Maya's. The arthritis. Arthritis. All right? Yes? Mm-hmm. Okay. All right.
They are doing lots of tests. And, I hope everything's okay.
Certainly. Well, let's make that assumption. How about that?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, so knowing, one more, here we go, and then I'll stop and then hold yourself in prayer as we do that. Yes. Okay, feet and ankles. All right. So a lot of people want to be healed, right? Okay, drug addiction. So just listen to this morning. We're unity. You're supposed to be all fixed. Okay? We know better. I'm only kidding. But it is important for us, and I want to demonstrate this law of assumption and let you know that it works for each of you individually and also for anybody who's not here. Because we are one in spirit. We are one with the universe. Any thoughts and any consciousness we have is passed on some kind of mystical way to others. And so let's just take a moment now and just gently close your eyes if you'd like. And as you do, I want you to hold in the light total health, total oneness. And I want you to know and affirm that the power of God is flowing through each of you and each and every individual who was mentioned this morning in this moment. And it is a healing energy. So whether the prayer was for yourself or someone else, I want you to right now visualize yourself or that person as healthy. I want you to see how they would act. Think about them as 25 years old for a minute. And that they can dance and they can walk. And they're spry. And they have lots of energy. See yourself that way, with lots of energy. Now I want you to feel that. What does that feel like? It feels good. It feels exciting. And it's in that excitement that our passion grows. That we start to spiritually understand that each and every one of us can have better health, a better life, more abundance. And I feel that right now. I feel the health coming on in each and every person and myself. I know that there's more than enough for everybody in this world. And I feel that coming to me. Experience that in this moment. And I know that the I am in me is a declaration of truth. I am healed because I am whole. I am filled with creative ideas. I feel those ideas. I have passion for those ideas. I experience my healing right now. I and you and others are truly one. And we turn to spirit, to the I am that's present in each and every one of us, to the same degree and the same power to heal. And we affirm that as we heal, we become more powerful, we become so healthy that we start to understand and we are grateful for the strength we acquire by going through a state of what we call unhealthiness. I'm thankful. I'm open. I'm non-resistant. I'm not attached. For I know and affirm that what I assume is already real. And so it is. Amen. Thank you.